Well, it's kind of scary to be looking at another story like this. There are a lot of similarities. I mean, a beautiful, innocent-looking little baby child, uh, obviously found dead. Question is how, when, where, why. There's a lot of things I don't know. Of course, you only introduced me to this case today. I've tried to learn some things about it. So um, I couldn't make any judgment about the mother or her voice. I'd want to know, as you pointed out, maybe talking to other people. For instance, does she talk like that all the time? Is this some new uh, idea that you came up with because you're an expert in interviewing people and looking at people and going to trials? I don't know. All I know is it's very unpleasant to see that here's another infant, obviously innocent child, dead. And according to what I've learned today, some uh, pretty bad details about how, when, and where. And most of those details are not known.
And so distressing to know that that baby suffered so terribly. The blanket was so tight around her face. The coroner said that it flattened her facial features. The force was so violent, the way the killer stuffed this child upside down, wrapped in tinfoil, so violently that her head bent backwards, just up against her back. If you can picture it, it's just hard to fathom who would do this to someone so precious and
I don't know that that's true, though, Ashleigh, from what I've seen. Uh, there's no question that the child died. The question, and the medical examiner, from what I saw earlier today, sets the cause of death as asphyxia. That means she starved to death for oxygen, for air. And when that happens, there are telltale signs that every medical examiner knows. There are marks, little spots, both in the lips and in the eyes that show how this person, this child, was struggling for air. I don't know whether that's there or not. You cannot assume that. So there's only, certain causes of death. Asphyxia is loss of air, sanguination, blood force trauma. I didn't hear or see anything other than how she was found. Now, as bad as that is, as bad as that sounds, that does not necessarily establish the cause of death. That child could have had some other cause. The medical examiner should have been able to know that conclusively by an autopsy.
Well,
I didn't hear.
Medical examiner decided, that's, yeah, and it can be questioned by the defense attorney as you would do, but that's what the medical examiner said. Manner of death was homicide, and they did report, and again, it can be questioned, it certainly can be questioned and probably will in this case, that they believe that that child was alive when that child was put upside down into that trash can. One of the things I want to ask you about that, Cheney, is that the photographs of that baby, once they had retrieved her from the trash can, were so graphic. And I haven't heard this before. They held some of them back from the jury. They allowed them to see 35 pictures, but they held some of them back, thinking that they'd be too prejudicial. Have you heard of that, that jurors couldn't see autopsy photos because they're too prejudicial?
It's very common to withhold photographs that don't necessarily prove anything. Just because they're pictures doesn't mean that they have evidentiary value. You can inflame and you can make people unhappy about it, and naturally so. Who wants to see pictures of a child like? But I don't know from the description that was given to me earlier today that they prove the cause of death or necessarily the manner of death. We do know conclusively from the pictures an inappropriate, unacceptable, and illegal disposition of this child's remains. But I don't know that proves the other parts of it.
And that's where a lot of the other story comes in. And let me just sort of list off a few of the parallels that made me think of Casey's story. And that is that Megan started dating a new boyfriend while this child was still in the trash can, took trips to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, and moved in with the boyfriend while the child was decomposing. She also mentioned, I have a good idea of who she's with, but then wouldn't say. And I remember Casey had a Zenaida Gonzalez story that ended up being a disaster.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.